It's time to chill out and get ready for a mediocre Q&A live stream. If you're old enough, grab yourself your favorite adult beverage, and if you're not, stick with apple juice. Put your feet up and relax. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them in the chat. And now let's cue up the intro music. Let's see if I can remember how to do this. It's been a minute. It's been 5 months since I've done the last stream. Welcome to the HVACR videos live stream. I had to kind of remember. I had to dust off the buttons and make sure I could figure everything out. My name's Chris. For those that are just popping in here, you might know who I am. You might not. I don't know. And don't get your hopes up. This is just a live stream where I just talk about my videos and kind of go off on rants and whatnot. But welcome to everybody. It's awesome to see all the familiar screen names. I was going to say faces, but screen names, I guess I should say. How's my audio sound for those that are in the chat? Sound pretty good? I know that I vaguely, as I was dusting everything off and kind of going through everything, I remembered that when I when I kind of paused these things, there was a lot going on, and I'll get into that. But okay, cool. Audio is good. But one of the problems I was having was audio. It was intro music, outro music, my mic, like everything was messed up. And it ended up being my the dock that I use for all my stuff, because I run everything off my MacBook, and I have like a dock that ran all my monitors and stuff, and that thing was malfunctioning. So I think that was the cause of all my audio problems 5 months ago. It's been a minute. So yeah, welcome to everybody that's in the chat. Hello. We have a couple things I want to talk about. I'm going to try not to spend too much time on the stream. I want to try to kind of like reduce the time just a little bit, but of course we'll see how it goes basically. So, yeah, it was back in May was my last live stream. And then before that, it was basically this whole year has been just like sporadic. And I'm not saying I'm going to be back every single week. I'm trying to prioritize my sanity. That's why the live streams kind of stopped or slowed down essentially, was because I'm trying to prioritize my sanity. Work got crazy. So we lost a employee back in March, April, somewhere in there. And unfortunately, and life happens, we had to move on. But I didn't want to hire out of desperation. So I took on the workload and I'm still carrying the workload, but have another technician that is really helping me out, doing awesome. And then have 2 new apprentices that are doing great too. They've been with us each for 3-4 months now. So they're both doing really good. And, and it's funny, work was kind of slow for a while. So I was like, well, this is working out because, we were short staffed and stuff. And then all of a sudden it just hit, and it hit hard this summer. And we've just been carrying the load of what should be 4 to 5 full-fledged technicians with 2 technicians and 2 apprentices. So it's been a rough summer to say the least, but we're alive. We're here. I'm thankful. My family had to pay the price a little bit with my sanity and my being busy all the time, but we're getting to the other side of it. And I'm hoping that I'm always looking for a new technician basically, but I'm being very picky with the technician that I hire. I'm not looking for another apprentice right now because my existing apprentices are doing great and I need another full-fledged technician. So we'll see how that goes. I'll be putting stuff out on social media and everything like that, but I'm not going to hire out of desperation. I refuse to do that. So that's why I've been kind of controlled. We actually let go of some customers, prioritized really good customers. And yeah, that's what we've been doing. That's where I have been. I'm still uploading the videos and stuff. You guys have seen those coming through. And even this summer, we didn't have any crazy, it was not a super hot summer as opposed to previous years, but it was definitely a busy summer to say the least. And then one of my really good customers started up their maintenance program again, which that was I was super stoked when I heard that coming down the pipeline, but then a lot of drama happened with that, but it's all good now and all the kinks are worked out. But man, we are busy just in maintenances alone, which is crazy. But I'm thankful. And something that I have to remind myself when I go through this is I keep telling myself, because I get super stressed out. I have anxiety problems and all that stuff, but I have to keep reminding myself that I can guarantee you there's going to be someone out there that would be thankful for my problems. And try to remind myself of that when I'm going crazy, because, when you look at things in perspective, sometimes it helps. So it is what it is, right? But hope you guys are doing well. How was your summer? Let me know in the chat. Crazy, busy. It's funny because I just randomly thought today, I was like, you know what? I should do a live stream and have a little list of things. And I was like, you know what? Let's just do it. And as you guys see, not much changed. Although I will say it was kind of funny because I was talking to my wife and am I wearing pants? Brian Sanders asks. That is the true question. Yep, I'm wearing pants. They're shorts, but I'm wearing pants. So yes, I am. But all right, let's see. And it says, wow, I'm on a Monday. Yeah, I'm surprised nobody took my spot. In all this time, I'm surprised some other content creator didn't come in and try to hijack my spot. I guess they maybe knew what was up, right? So all right. It has been 5 months. Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's what I was going to say. I got distracted when I was talking about the 5-month thing. So check this out. The last time I did a live stream, I had a shaved head and I've got like a full head of hair. Yeah, that's the difference. 5 months will do. I got a full head of hair and I've had it cut many times. My hair is freaking wild, man. It's absolutely wild. It's all gray, but it just doesn't stop. So let's see what else we got going on in the chat right now. Short pants. There you go. Short pants. Thanks so much, man. All right, cool. First summer ever was pretty toasty and lonely on them roofs. Man, Derek Baker, boy, do I enjoy a nice, quiet roof. Don't get me wrong. I love working with people, with my coworkers and stuff, but on the days that I could just get up on the roof by myself and just do a maintenance or something, man, I'm in just like my zone. But I'm also have issues in my head. There's a little craziness in there. There's a little tism in there. There's a little bit of everything, right? And so I don't mind being by myself sometimes. So sometimes I just got to go for a drive or just go work on a roof. When I get stressed out, my happy place, like what calms me down is just go run some service calls. That's literally my happy place. So let's see. Oh, there you go. Right on. Brian Sanders said he kept everybody off my spot. So there we go. Right on. Gray equals distinguish. Yeah, I say embrace the gray. That's my thing. Look at that. Like, it's funny because we got pictures. So this is a hallway right here on the other side in my house. And we've got pictures all in the hallway. And there's a picture of me holding my dog, Luke, who's a couple years old now. And I'm holding him in my arms, you know, he's a little puppy, and my beard is pure black. And it's like, oh yeah, no, there's not much black left in that beard. It's all salt and pepper now. So let's see. I don't know how to pronounce your name, my friend, but Arolis7. My videos are by far the most informative and detailed out of all the other. Oh, that's very nice. Listen, I have a really hard time with praise, and I realize that you type the words and you mean the words, but like I'm just a normal service technician. So don't take offense by that. But like, I literally am just a normal service tech, right? I just happen to be super detail oriented. And I'm sure that's some of my issues, severe ADHD, autism, whatever it is. Like I know I'm hard to work with, and I'm very aware of it now. In the past, I wasn't very aware with it. You know, we were just having an employee meeting, and I'm just like, I know you guys know that I struggle with this stuff. You know, I'm talking to everybody like, I'm sorry, you know, you got to talk to me. And that's something that I tell people all the time too. Oftentimes I get in my tunnel vision, my work mode. And that's, I think, why I excel at what I do is because I have that hyper focus, right? And it's a blessing and a curse essentially. But I sometimes, like when I go places, I look unapproachable. If people see me out in the public or something, I look unapproachable. It's just because I'm always got my mind on something. Like I'm always moving. It's not that I don't want to be talked to or stop and say hi to people. People just got to stop me. I've just always been a very literal person. So anyways, enough about me. Welcome to the HVACR videos live stream. So, you know, when I do these live streams for the new people, I like to answer some questions, and I usually go off on tangents couple times throughout the thing. I'll get to questions that you guys have. If you guys, dang, Jason Johnson, I could only be envious. He says he turned 46 and not a single gray hair. Wow. I mean, I don't mind the gray, but I've got lots of gray hair. But yeah, so if you guys have questions or things you want me to cover, do me a favor, put it in the chat. Doesn't matter what platform you're watching this on, put it in all capitals. And it'll help me to see them. If I don't get to your question, if I don't have time to get to your comment or address it, feel free to shoot me an email, hvacrvideos@gmail.com, and let's get on with this. So, ever-changing refrigerant landscape. So there was a conversation earlier talking about different refrigerants and some of the silly ones, how we have 448A and 449, which are like almost identical. And we have 404A and 507, which are almost identical. You know, why do we have so many different flavors of refrigerants? I mean, the moment that you stop trying to figure that out, the better you're going to be. Okay. You don't have control over the refrigerants. You can be stubborn all you want, and you can stand on a high horse and say that you're never going to work with a flammable refrigerant. Well, you're never going to work in the next few years if that's the case. I mean, just it is what it is. Be careful, be cautious, use your brain, learn how to use the saturation PT chart, looking at the saturation temperatures, stop focusing on the pressures, because, you know, coming up in the trade, yeah, I was taught to look at pressures. I was literally taught that on an air conditioner, which none of this makes sense. None of this is correct, but I was taught that on an air conditioner, your head pressure should be 275 PSI and your suction pressure should be about 65 to 70 PSI. And what you would do, what I was taught to do, was if your head pressure was not at 275 PSI, this was on old R22 equipment, I was taught to put a panel over the condenser, take the panel off the side, drive up the head pressure. Well, thank you very much for that super chat. My goodness gracious. Thank you. I really do appreciate that, Toby. Thank you. Or the super sticker. Thank you. That was very, very kind of you. But yeah, I was taught to drive up the head pressure by whatever means necessary, and your suction pressure should follow. Now, that was completely incorrect. That was not factual. There was no logic in that. And it totally made sense because it might have worked every once in a while, but I could never get it to line up perfectly. It was always, I found myself like, I guess that's close enough. It'll be okay. But it's because I was taught incorrectly. And that's the thing about this trade, is there's a lot of people out there that are taught incorrectly. I certainly was. And for most of my career, I didn't do things correctly. It worked, right? We got it working. It was kind of like, you know, but these days with the high efficiency equipment, we can't be winging it anymore. We really have to know what we're doing, right? And that's where we need to, and getting back to what I was saying, stop looking at pressures, start learning the PT charts, the saturation temperatures, right? Because guess what? It doesn't matter what refrigerant. I know that my walk-in evaporator for a medium temp walk-in needs to be about 25 degrees because I'm maintaining about a 35-degree box temp. Okay. So if my saturation temperature is somewhere between 20 and 30, while my box is ranging or whatever, then I know that my suction saturation is about where it needs to be, right? But it doesn't matter the pressure if you know the saturation temperatures. You can take that pressure of 404, 134, R22, 502, R12, MP39, insert name of whatever refrigerant, 407A, 407C, there's a bajillion different refrigerants, and you don't got to remember the pressures. You just need to look at the saturation temperature. So if there's any advice I can give to anybody that wants to learn refrigeration, and this applies to air conditioning too, is stop focusing on pressures and really start focusing on temperatures. Okay. It's really going to help you. Now there's a lot more complexity with the high glide refrigerants, right? So that does get a little weird, but you'll get it. You'll figure it out. Start paying attention to the temperatures as opposed to the pressures. All right. So, but with all the different refrigerants, right? R290, isobutane, and then you have the new A2L refrigerants, and there's going to be a new flavor every single month, every single week. They're coming out with a new flavor of refrigerant. And guess what? All these new refrigerants, and that's the crazy thing. If you all are frustrated, right, over the refrigerant transition, right, into these A2L refrigerants, and you're like, seriously, because it seems like we just transitioned to 410A, and then now 410A is going out the door, and we're transitioning to these new A2Ls. The A2L transition's even shorter than the 410A transition. It's the A2Ls are already being phased out. Like they're already on a roadmap to phase those out, and there'll be a new one to replace it, right? If you look at other countries are already on the roadmap a lot closer than we are, especially the European countries, of phasing out the A2L refrigerants. So those are slowly moving out, and people are embracing CO2, and even, CO2 is going to have a shelf life too. Eventually they'll make that one go away. So there's always going to be something. But the cool thing about all that, while it seems frustrating, the really cool thing is that it's more work for us because we have to learn how to work with the new refrigerants. Therefore, we stay relevant amidst all this chaos, right? So embrace the change. I know sometimes it can be frustrating. Trust me. I mean, I have frustrations. I'm not going to pretend like I don't get frustrated. I do, but it is what it is. And this is the job. And guess what? You get to charge for your time. If you're a business owner, you charge to do whatever you got to do. If you're a technician, you get paid more money. You make more money. You're here to fix the problems, right? We got to work within the scope. And if you're really, really fired up, go get in politics. I would never want to be in that because that's just a losing battle. But go get into politics, get into lobbying, do whatever you want to do and make the changes, because I don't have the patience to have to deal with that kind of stuff. So JC says, any advice for someone wanting to start applying for HVACR jobs straight out of trade school? No, I mean, well, I shouldn't say no. No, that's the time. If you're straight out of trade school, apply for a job. Yeah. So there's a lot of the companies out there are hiring. Okay. So, you need to go to those companies and say, hey, I want to be an apprentice. I want to come work with you guys. Do not let a company throw you directly in a vehicle and send you to a service call on your first day. That's not the right company to work for. Even after trade school, you still have to go through an apprenticeship. Now, it doesn't necessarily need to be a 5-year apprenticeship, right? Or whatever, but you need to be trained. You need to learn, right? Especially in today's landscape and today's technology influx we have coming into the trade, you definitely need proper training. You need to shadow with someone. You need to work with someone, learn from them, and build yourself up, okay? But yeah, just go find the different companies, knock on their doors, give them a call, email them. Trust me, a lot of people are hiring. I'm about to put a thing out on social media that I'm hiring, right? I'm looking for that unicorn service technician that can hit the ground running. I may or may not find them, but I'm going to keep asking, right? And, so everybody out there is hiring for sure. So, all right, let's scroll down to the bottom and see hey, look at what the heck, Jason, Bill's in here. If Bill's in here, who's interacting in my YouTube comments right now? All right. Let's see what else we got going on in here. Bill, I'm having a hard time because I had to figure out how to do all these buttons and push all this stuff all by myself. It's been a minute. It's been 5 months, Bill, since I've done a live stream. So It's been a while for sure. All right, let's see. Reading through here right now. Best gauges for refrigeration. Hey, man, it really depends on what you like. I happen to be a field piece fan, but, you know, I mean, if you're looking for a typical like digital gauge set, I'm a field piece fan, but there's nothing wrong with the Testo stuff, with the NAVAC stuff. Everybody has their own preference. And I will say that, I mean, there's a lot of high quality stuff out there. There's a lot of low quality stuff too. But there's some good tools out these days. So it is pretty cool. I remember when Field Piece was the only like high quality digital manifold set. And, you know, Testo's there now, and all these different other brands have come out with their products. So there's a lot of competition out there. Ask around, you know, ask in the Facebook groups. The chat right now will probably tell you. There's a lot of different stuff, man. So check it out. So Toby says, you're always scared when I hold the phone in one hand and with the other hand I check voltage. Oh, it's actually the safest way to check voltage with one hand, to be honest with you. So, but I mean, yeah, there's always the potential that something's going to happen, but yeah. All right. Analog stubbies and probes. Yeah. You know, some people swear by a manifold gauge set or simply just digital probes. There's a whole trend of people that just use digital probes now. I still like a manifold gauge set, but I've been working more and more with my probes, and, you know, it becomes more and more convenient to use just the probes. I wish that, that there was more manufacturers out there that were coming out with digital probes that had digital readouts on them. So right now, NAVAC has a digital readout and JB has a digital readout on their probes. And I want to see Field Piece come out with something. I think that's going to be the next big thing, because that would be really cool if you could hook the Field Piece stuff up to an app if you wanted to, but also have just a digital readout on it. That would be cool. All right. You missed my face, Bill. I miss your face, Bill. All right. So if you guys don't know, Bill, Curious HVAC guy, he's in the chat right now. That's my buddy. And if you don't already know that we do another show together, you must be living under a rock, right? Because we have thousands and thousands of maybe 9 viewers. So, but we do a show together called the HVAC Overtime Show. And then Bill also helps out with my channel a little bit. So sometimes he will interact as me in the YouTube comments. So the question to those of you that are out here is, when is it Bill and when is it me? Because I would say 70% of the time it's me, 30% of the time it's Bill. So see if you can figure that out. Figure it out. If you're in my YouTube comments, is this Bill or is this Chris reacting with you? So Bill definitely gets in there every once in a while. So sometimes Bill has a twist on things. I do see it. I see some things and I'm like, I can't believe he said that, but it made me laugh. So Bill's a pretty funny guy. All right. Let's see. Papa K, it says, replacing a failed Kyrac, now Tralson pan chiller on a multiplex system soon. Having custom fabricated wrap style pan chiller shipped to site soon. No fan. Now accepting tips and advice. That's rough, man. Who are you having make the equipment, Papa K? So doing a cold wrap can be kind of tricky. There's one company out there out of Florida that I've seen that does a pretty good job of making their cold wraps. I've had custom cold wraps made before, and it's hit and miss on how well they work. So, but the Kyrac ones, man, those things are a chore. And I have a lot of Kyrac equipment out there that is really, really like on borrowed time. So customers are really going to have to start making some decisions. And a lot of it is custom equipment. So that is a chore, to say the least. Let's see. Tigra says, you're interviewing for a commercial HVACR company job tomorrow. Any last minute interviewing tips? Be yourself. Okay. That's the best advice I can give you. Be yourself, be polite, but remember, an interview is 2 ways. You ask questions, they ask questions. So you need to make sure you're asking just as many questions as them, right? Because that job needs to be a good fit for you just as much as you need to be a good fit for the company. Okay. So be yourself, be honest, ask lots of questions, and just, you know, just go, just show up, make sure you're a little bit early, you know, and just be yourself. That's the best advice I can give anybody. Matt, I believe that's you, Matt, under the Mechanical Environments name, says, Appian has digital readout probes too. Their app is a little clunky. Oh yeah. Appian was the first to come up with the digital readout probes. That's right. But it took forever for them to release them. Actually, no, they came out with the first digital. Did they come out with the first digital probes? No, it took them a while to release their digital probes. That's right. They had been teasing them for years, I think, and then they finally released them. Or no, I think theirs have been out for a very, very long time. I do remember that. Yeah, but their app's always been kind of clunky. And I don't like on the Appian stuff, I don't like to talk crap on people, but I'm just not a fan of their pressure probes with that silly hose that's permanently attached. Like, I don't know. I just don't like that. It's not my thing. So I use the high flow Schrader depressors, the I don't know what they're called, from Appian or whatever, that just kind of, you twist the knob and it depresses that. I keep that on the end of my field piece probes, and I use that to reduce the refrigerant blowback, kind of a thing. So, all right. Is the Discord active? Yeah, still got a Discord server. I am not active in there as much, but there's a group of people that still definitely are active in there. You can feel free to shoot me an email, hvacrvideos@gmail.com. I don't have the link ready right now, but if you want the link, I'm sure I could get it to you. So shoot me an email, hvacrvideos@gmail.com. Medic Herb, you want to move to the Inland Empire? You're going to sell your business and work for me. I was going to do the same for you, Medic Herb. All right. So do you want to build a snowman, Bill? Yep, there you go. Do he does? Oh, there you go. Ike's putting the Discord link in there right now. There you go. Sweet. All right. Do I have any suggestions on what videos to watch for basic electrical wiring? Oh, basic electrical wiring. You need to go over to AC Service Tech. My buddy Craig Migliaccio, him and his team have some great videos for basic electrical stuff. More tutorial style stuff, classroom style stuff. Yeah, Craig does a great job at that. My videos are more like, this is just me working. You can kind of learn from that. I talk to myself when I work, so you kind of get an experience and you backwards learn through my, troubleshooting or whatever. But Craig has a more traditional style of educating people on how to read schematics and how to troubleshoot different stuff. So definitely go check out Craig's content. So, all right. Did I try the Cobalt sprayer yet? Yeah, Brian, I actually did. And it worked great for a while, but I actually ended up returning it. So yeah, I tried it out and I was just like, yeah, but it just didn't have the pressure that I wanted it to have, nor does anything else. Nothing has the pressure. We're talking about an electric pump sprayer. So instead of doing the hand pump sprayer, there's a Cobalt one, that's battery operated. And then there's a couple different other brands. New Calgon has one and a couple other ones, but I want the pressure of the new Calgon without the new Calgon one. What I really want is, I know that Milwaukee has one, but Milwaukee is stupid expensive for their pump sprayer thing. It's just ridiculous. And I've just been reluctant to bite the bullet with the Milwaukee one. So, all right, let's see what else. Yes, forget about the pressures, talk about temps. That's right. Do I believe you can pull moisture out of POE oil with a strong enough vacuum? I'm not a scientist. I think I've read some stuff that it's very difficult to actually get all the moisture out of the POE oil, but I believe you can do a pretty good job. But yeah, I'm not a scientist, so I don't know the answer to that completely. So, all right. Medic Herb, you said you supply all tools, and yeah, we don't supply hand tools. Like, we ask our technicians to bring basic hand tools, tool bag, thermometers, that kind of stuff, but we supply the big ticket items, right? We do ask them to bring a set of gauges and cordless drill, but then if there's any specialty stuff, vacuum pumps, recovery machines, torches, specialty meters, that kind of stuff, we take care of that stuff. So we just ask them to bring the hand tools, the stuff that they're going to lose the most, right? So that way they really think about not losing those hand tools, kind of a thing. So all right, there you go. So Al Anonymous is saying, no, you cannot. Once POE goes through hydrolysis, it is irreversible. And see, that's kind of what I've heard. So that sounds pretty accurate to me. So oh, okay, yeah, Medicare, basically the same thing as me. So all right, cool. So a couple things I want to talk about, some questions from the last videos and stuff. So someone had asked me, what's my honest opinion on evaporators for walk-in coolers and walk-in freezers that have electronic expansion valves and circuit boards? Two different major players out there. Heatcraft has the Intelligen, and then Russell has their EcoNet system. So between the two of them, what's my thought on those? My thought is that I wish that the electronics were installed outside of the box, but They aren't. So we deal with it, right? Have I had any serious problems? Like, we all walk up and we see the evaporator and we're like, man, all that electronic just seems like a bad idea. But for the most part, I mean, in all honesty, I really haven't. And I work a lot with Heatcraft. I haven't done anything with the Russell electronic stuff. I just haven't. So, but I do a lot of the Heatcraft stuff. And I mean, for the most part, I really haven't had many problems. Nothing that's really water related. Maybe once or twice you've had some conformal coating that wasn't on the board enough or something, and you had some corrosion. But I mean, that's far and few between. So it's really not that big of a deal. I know a lot of people don't like it. And, of course, I would love to see it all, installed outside of the box, but you have to understand the manufacturers, right? So, and this is my perspective. Nobody's told me this, but my perspective on it is these manufacturers have to make a product, market a product, and sell a product that the customer wants to buy, that we as contractors want to install, right? And if they came to us and they said, you can buy our evaporator, but you have to buy our circuit board kit separate, right? And mount it separately and pay this much money, that would get rather expensive, right? Speaking of that, like, it's funny that I happen to have one of these sitting right here, but this is the Intelligent remote kit for, but this isn't you could remote it, but this could be used as a controller for any walk-in cooler. This is a whole setup. I just happen to have it sitting next to my desk, but this isn't a whole encapsulated box. You can install this outside of the box if you want, if the customer wants to. But to be honest, the price to buy all of this and buy the evaporator equipped and set up to be able to have this installed, that's much more expensive than the evaporator that's already put together that you just put inside the box, pull the main power to, and turn it on. So it really is a cost thing. And if you really truly want to buy a system, you could design them. You can buy an evaporator from Heatcraft, and you can buy the Intelligent IFM kit and mount this outside of the box, and then all your electronics would be out for the most part. You still have terminal boards inside, and you still have an EEV inside, but you can do it. It's just the cost is going to be rather high. That's the only issue with that, right? So what's my opinion on equipment that has all the digital stuff? I mean, I think it's great. I think it works good once you get used to it. For me, people ask me all the time in my comments, and they'll send me emails, what's my favorite brand of equipment? Or I'll get a homeowner or a business owner, what air conditioner should I buy that's never going to break? There's not one out there that's not going to break. It doesn't exist, okay? I was literally just having this conversation with a family member of mine because they are having some issues, and they were like, what's the best brand? And I'm like, the best brand is whatever your contractor is confident working on. That's the best brand, because I'm not super confident working on York and Train equipment, or even Aon equipment, right? Because I'm not familiar with them as much as I'm super familiar with working on Lennox and Carrier. So of course I'm going to recommend Lennox or Carrier, but it's not because Aon's bad or York. Well, actually York is bad, period. There's nothing good about York, but Train's not necessarily bad. It's just and I was being sarcastic, but not really, right? But maybe York will get better now that they got bought by Bosch. Let's just hope. Let's hope that they get better. It really is about what you're comfortable working on. That's the truth, right? So, all right, let's see what else we got going on in here. It is a nice NEMA box, Jason, for sure. So what's the ideal saturation temperature you should look for? The ideal for air conditioning systems, it should be above 34 degrees. For air conditioning, it should be well above 34 degrees. When you're looking at your evaporator temperature on an air conditioner, you should be, depending on how you design that system, somewhere between 40 to 55 degrees. So it should be your saturation temperature for an evap temp. But the thing is when you're looking for that temp, and this is something that I think, and I struggled with this for a very long time, and I know that other people struggle with this too, is there is no, this is what your saturation temperature should be, because there's so many variables that equal what your saturation temperature should be. And I'm not focusing just on your question. Let's see, where's this one? Have I ever done super? No. Josh, I'm not focusing and just talking to you directly. I'm talking to people in general, because this is a really common question. But is that, there's so many variables that go into one metric, right? So evaporator superheat on a walk-in cooler, medium temperature, should be, depending on the equipment, 8 to 15 degrees, somewhere in there, right? But it's all about how you design it. And it's not going to be a constant 8 to 15 degrees all the time, because if you have varying loads, that number is going to be fluid and it's going to change. And this is where, when you still have the people out there that get on a high horse and swear that digital is the trash, it should have never been invented for gauges and stuff, they're just plain and simply wrong. Because yes, I understand that using analog gauges was great. And yeah, you got by for 50 years using them. But nowadays, there's so many variables in this high efficiency equipment. And it's not just about superheat. It's not just about subcooling. It's about looking at the whole system as a whole. Airflow, saturation temp, discharge temp, everything. And you look at one thing and you say, wow, my subcooling's really high. But then you look at other metrics and you're like, okay, but this is here and this is here and this is here. Oh, that kind of makes sense. And it starts. And then by the time you realize it, you realize my subcooling's high because I have my discharge pressure, right? Or your liquid pressure is on the discharge port. Oh, so subcooling is going to be higher because there is a difference between discharge pressure and liquid pressure. Depending on what type of condenser it has, what type of evaporator it has, you might see a pressure drop anywhere from, 10 PSI to 40 PSI from discharge to liquid, depending on the brand and the conditions. So there's so many variables. So it's not just a one-stop look for this and look for this. Even in residential, which seems super simple, it's not. You don't just look for a certain pressure or a certain temperature and call it a day. You really have to understand. And that's where digital really comes into play. You have all these different apps that can consolidate data. Each tool manufacturer has a cool app that does stuff with their tools, and it's all neat. But what I like those apps the most for is data consolidation. I happen to like Measure Quick. I got no affiliation with them. I just like their app, right? So I use that app a lot. I don't necessarily use the troubleshooting in Measure Quick. I just like to see all the information in front of my face, right? Occasionally I'll go see if their troubleshooting logic leads to what I'm thinking in my head, but I'll look at the numbers and I look at the airflow and look at the outside air temperatures and look at all these different things. And then it just kind of adds in my head and I get it all in one place. And it's really nice to have that information there. And what's really blown my mind is that back in the day when I was in trade school, Mount San Antonio Community College in Walnut, California is where I went to trade school. And it's about an hour from my house. And it was many, many years ago. The funny thing is, I'm going off on a tangent right now. The funny thing is that I never finished trade school. I have 2 classes to get a certificate in HVACR. I need to take welding and technical math for air conditioning or something like that. 2 classes I need to finish so I can get a certificate. One of these days I should go back there and do that. In fact, I ran into my old instructor, Darrow Soares, recently because he still pops in my social circles every once in a while through RSCS or something. I'll run into him. And I told him that story and he looked at me and he goes, Chris, he goes, you know how much you're hurting the program? He goes, you got to finish the program. That's how the program gets funding. And I was like, you're right, Darrow. I need to finish that. And that was like 5 years ago and I still haven't finished it, but I need to go get that done. But now that I went off on a tangent, I don't even know where I was going with that. I totally lost my train of thought. But anyways, oh, dang it. I know where I was going to go and then I'm losing it. Oh, okay. So in trade school, I was taught, let's just say to check superheat, right? So we would have a K-type thermocouple. You would have a little Velcro strap. You would strap it to the suction line and then you would plug your K-type thermocouple that you verified accuracy on before you checked it. So you had to use it in ice water, make sure it was reading 32 degrees. So anyways, you'd have a temperature reading device, whether it was your meter or a Fluke 52 or something, and you would plug the thermocouple into your meter and it would give you a temperature. Then you would put your manifold gauge set on the system compound and you would get a pressure that you would convert to a saturation temperature. If you were lucky, the saturation temp was on the gauges. Then you would take that saturation temperature and you take that suction line temperature and you'd calculate a superheat, right? Then you'd have a singular superheat number. Let's just say 10 degrees, okay? 10 degrees, right? So I got 10 degrees superheat. That sounds really good. But what they didn't teach you and what you can see with digital is that 10 degrees superheat, that is a fluid number. It doesn't stay constant. It changes. Someone opens the door to the building, the front doors, and a lot of warm air comes into the dining room. It sucks up into the return. That evaporator pressure is going to rise, which is going to change your superheat. The expansion valve, if it's thermostatic, is going to react to the temperature, and it's going to open and close depending on the temperature of the sensing bulb on the suction line, right? And then that superheat number is going to go up, it's going to go down, and it's going to be a fluid number that's going to change, right? And you want to find the medium, like the middle temperature, and you don't want big swings on it. Now we have electronic valves where it is a lot more constant, but still it's a fluid number based on the system conditions. So we're not looking for just one constant number. And that's something that I realized when I really started paying attention to the apps like Measure Quick, and you just watch a system operate for 20 minutes. Just watch it. Watch the expansion valve open and notice that when the expansion valve opens, the subcooling changes. And then when the subcooling changes, the superheat changes and the pressures change and everything in the system is working together, right? So the way that I was taught was that 275 head pressure, 65 suction pressure on an R22 package unit. Well, none of that makes sense. How could that have ever worked, right? I was taught everything incorrectly, and it's okay. That's just how things were back in the day. I don't blame my dad. I learned from my dad, and I learned from senior mechanics at my company. I learned from trade school. I wasn't taught to do things right, but eventually I realized like this just doesn't make sense. It doesn't work. Then I started finding my own knowledge. And long before Facebook, I found knowledge, and that was on a message board site called HVAC Talk. I've told this story before, but HVAC Talk, which still exists, but it used to be huge. A lot of the people from HVAC Talk are on Facebook now too, in the Facebook groups. But anyways, now that we went off on that tangent, let's go down and see what I'm missing in the chat real quick. Yeah, all questions in caps. Do I ever check the system base, condensing temp over ambient, and evap temp split? I mean, I look at condensing temp over ambient and the evaporator temp split, but those don't mean a whole lot to me. Those are metrics that I use as part of the big picture for sure, right? So for instance, I'll tell you right now that almost on all the equipment that I work on, right? It may change for you. So don't use this as your thing. But for me, all the equipment that I work on, my condensing temp over ambient. So that is the liquid saturation temperature, which is your refrigerant pressure converted to a temperature, right? So on the high side, liquid saturation temperature compared to the ambient temperature, okay? The outside air temperature going into the condenser. And I know that on all the equipment I work on, my condensing temp over ambient, right? Or my condenser TD should never be more than 30 degrees. But we don't charge to that number. That's just something that I'm looking for. When I'm looking at my system, I always look at what my condensing temp over ambient is. And usually it's around 15 to 25 degrees on most of the systems that I'm working on. But again, it's a fluid number, okay? It changes, but never should it be on the equipment I work on over 30 degrees, right? And typically on the more high efficiency equipment, it's 15 to 20, 25 degrees, never any more than that, but definitely no more than 30. So we don't charge to that number, but I was taught to charge to that number, but that's a whole nother conversation, okay? And then as far as the evaporator temperature differential from supply to return on an air conditioner, I mean, that number is going to change too. And so let me ask someone in the chat, and I'm genuinely kind of curious, people in the chat right now, what are some things that affect your condenser? You're on an air conditioner. What are some things that affect your delta T from return to supply? And what do we need? What variables do we need to know what our delta T should be? Because we were all taught that our delta T on an air conditioner should be 20 degrees. I guarantee all of you guys were taught that, right? But that's not true. It shouldn't be 20 degrees. It depends on the conditions of which the air conditioner is working under. That's what it depends. So I'm asking in the chat right now, what are some things that affect the delta T? Let me know in the chat. Let's see what they have to say. Airflow, definitely one of the things that's going to affect the delta T. Let's see, wet bulb, dry bulb, airflow. There you go. Those three things right there are very important to figuring out the delta T. And depending on your indoor conditions, your wet bulb temperature, your outdoor temperature, you're going to figure out what your delta T should be. And it's going to change. If it's super humid outside, the delta T is going to be a different number than if it's not super humid outside, right? Or in the building or whatever. So it's a fluid number too. So everything in this industry, there's not just a one thing that we look for. And there's nothing wrong with not knowing that. You just got to be better, right? Because I didn't know that forever. And I can guarantee there's other people in the chat that didn't know that forever either. Al Anonymous says air density. Yes, that's correct, right? Fan speed. If your evaporator's running too low, right, that's going to affect your delta T. If the evaporator fan motor is running too slow, that's going to affect your delta T. If it's running too fast, it's going to affect your delta T. All that's going to change. And you can also manipulate the delta T by slowing down and speeding up the evaporator to make you think that it's working really good when in reality it's not, right? If you don't have the desired delta T and you just decide to slow down the airflow, well, you might get a bigger delta T by slowing down the airflow, but then you slow down your heat absorption in the evaporator. So even though you have a delta T, the customer's still complaining that it's not cooling down the building, because it's not just a one thing. You don't just focus on one thing. You look at the whole system, right? And that's where apps come into play, and they can tell you, here's the delivered capacity of this equipment. Here's what the delivered capacity should be, right? And then that helps you so much more to be able to understand what's going on. Let's see. If there's anything that has made him better, it's physically paying attention to the humidity and the airflow. That definitely, for sure. The distance and the pipeline, maybe. All that can affect. So refrigerant pipes, yeah, if you have a split system, the distance of the pipes, if they're not designed properly, is definitely going to negatively affect things, right? If you have too long of a line set run and you don't have the pipe properly sized, then you're going to have a large pressure drop across that piping, and that can affect the way that your system runs too. All right, I'm going to get to a couple more questions on here. So what is the static pressure? This is just a generic question, but I get this quite a bit. Someone says, what should the total external static pressure be for package units on the roof? Okay. That number can vary greatly, and it really depends on how the equipment was designed. On the equipment that I work on, which is light commercial equipment, right? Typically, I can see total external static pressure requirements from 1/2 inch all the way up to about 2 inches is what I typically see from the manufacturers. And it just depends on the size of the blower motor they put in there, the way that the evaporator coil is designed, because they have to move that air across the evaporator coil at a certain speed, and that's all affected, right? So typically I see anywhere from 1/2 inch of required total external static maximum to 2 inches of maximum total external static pressure. But it just, every equipment manufacturer is going to have a different rating at which their equipment can operate underneath, and it's just how the systems were all engineered. All right, let's see. How am I liking my house system? Am I still happy with it? Has it affected my energy bills? Info Warrior. Yeah. So it's funny because I was just thinking about it this a couple weeks ago too. I was like, man, I need to do like an update video. But so let me ask you guys. So since I filmed my last video, right, which was me starting my system up and operating it and whatever, do you think I've made any changes to my system? Have I upgraded anything else? I'm looking for a yes or a no answer. I'm curious what you guys think. So I'm reading through the chat right now, seeing if I've seen anything else. I'm waiting for your answers. Have I upgraded anything else on my system? Have I done anything different? Yes or no on my home system? Some of you may not even know that I did a home system video. I don't know how long all of you have been watching. So I've got one no. I've got one no. Steve J says yes. Neil C says I've been tinkering with it. Info Warrior says yes. No, I haven't done a single thing since the last video you guys watched. I haven't done anything. I haven't even sealed up the penetration that my line set goes on the side of my house. I haven't even, like, my insulation on my line set, I never glued the insulation together, so there's still like a tiny little thing in between the insulation. I haven't done a single thing to my system. It has been operating for 2 years, just how you last saw it. And it's been operating phenomenally. I changed the filters. I've washed the condenser maybe 2 times. Actually, I was just looking at the condenser the other day and it's really dirty. So I need to wash the condenser. It's been working phenomenally. Okay. So for those that don't know, I did a whole video series on changing the air conditioner in my house. I'm a commercial technician. I don't know anything about residential. Obviously, I know about air conditioning and I have basic mechanical skills, but my buddy Adam Muffitch, from the HVAC Overtime Show and from the NCI, come on, I'm name dropping Adam right now, helped me to design the system, and we installed it, and we downsized my system from a 4-ton that was oversized to the smallest system we can get on my house, and that was a 2-ton split system. So we went with the Carrier Infinity system, and it's been running really great. Haven't had any refrigerant issues. Mind you, I know all the haters said I was going to have leaks for days. I use the Zoomlock Max press fittings because I ran a crazy line set for my house. Never had a problem. So never had to add any more gas. It's been working phenomenally. Probably about 8 months ago, I remember thinking, oh, I'm going to check the charge. So I put my system into charging mode, put all my probes on it. Charge is still dead on. Everything's great. No problems at all. So haven't even cleaned my evaporator once. The filter does a great job. It is time to go ahead and pull the cover and, probably put some coil cleaner on the evaporator just to make sure. But yeah, I haven't had a single moment to do anything with my system. So just wondering, why would outside air be needed if just 100% indoor air circulation would improve HVAC efficiency and cooling? If outside air requires more work to cool the air down if it's hot. And that's simply because as a human, it's really basic science, right? In order for an air conditioner to work, it needs to recirculate the air for the most part. Okay, I know there's DOAS systems, but a typical air conditioner, all it does is recirculate the building air, right? It pulls the warm air from the building, runs it through an evaporator, absorbs the heat, discharges it, pushes that air back down into the building, right? And just recirculates. But as humans, when we are in a building, we are breathing out carbon dioxide, essentially. There's other things in it, but mostly carbon dioxide, right? And when you breathe that out, you then dilute the oxygen-rich air that you're breathing in, right? Eventually, if you have a person in a nicely, sealed up building, eventually they're going to get really sleepy and they're going to fall asleep and pass out, basically, right? Because you can't just keep breathing that air. You need fresh air for people to breathe. So that is why we bring outside air in. Also, in a home, a general home, there's a lot of toxic substances that are off-gassing. We use 409 cleaner, right? You spray that on your countertops. That stuff's actually really, really bad, especially in a really, really tight house. And what I mean by tight is there's not a lot of air leaks. You light a candle in your house. A lot of people think candles are good for you. Candles are actually one of the worst things you can have in your house. We do have candles in our house, but that is one of the worst things you can have in your house because when you burn them, carcinogens are released and other toxic chemicals are released. And if you have a really airtight house, that stuff is just being recirculated. It off gases all kinds of stuff. Your furniture off gases. You ever wonder why your car smells so interesting when you get a new car? That new car smell, that's toxic. That's all that is. That new car smell is toxins that are off-gassing, the glues that are holding the carpets together. When you get a new house and it has that smell, that's all the glues and the toxic crap that's off-gassing from all the building materials. So we have to bring fresh air into the house or the commercial building, right? There's actually energy codes that say you have to have fresh air. There's actually building codes that say you bring fresh air into the building. You don't want sleepy building syndrome, basically, right? Where the workers in an office building that's 15 stories tall that has 10,000 people working on it, they're all sitting at their computers and they're typing. And as the oxygen's being depleted, right? And there's more CO2 that they're breathing in, the people are getting slower and slower and they're not as productive and they're not doing as much and they're not making the company as much money, right? And so at the same time, the company wants to be safe for people, but bottom line, they want to start making more money, right? Because they want people to be productive. So you got to bring fresh air in that building, keep the people moving, keep them oxygenated, right? So, all right. Have I ever wanted to work on grocery store rack systems? Dylan, I'm really interested in rack systems, but I don't have the time to learn rack systems, nor do I have an opportunity because my company doesn't work in that kind of stuff. And it doesn't make sense for me to try to take on a customer that has a rack system if I don't know how to work on them. So I vicariously live through other people, other friends of mine that work on rack systems. I get to pick their brains, see their pictures and their posts every once in a while. So you studied HVAC on your own, you know the basics, and got a universal cert. You called every HVAC place in a 2-hour drive and did not get many responses. You lack experience. What do you do? Can you work for me? Well, no, I mean, I'm not looking for an apprentice right now, but you need an apprentice position is what you need. So you need an apprentice position. In a lot of places, I know you learned it on your own, but a lot of places want to see that you've been to some sort of a trade school because that shows drive. That shows that you truly have an interest, right? So you will find the right person. You need to find someone that's willing to take you under their wing. You have to understand, as an apprentice, you're not going to make as much as a journeyman technician, but eventually you'll work your way up. Okay. So there is places out there. I just hired 2 inexperienced service technicians that both went through trade school, and they are apprentices, and they're both doing great, and they're learning. We have one rides with me typically every day, and then one rides with my other tech typically every day, and we switch off. That way they both get a chance to ride around with me, and they learn, they observe, they help, and they, move through the process. So let's see what else we got going on in here. You love them toxins. That's right. Hey, what's up, Adrian from Reliable? There you go. How's it going, man? All right. Wish would be a better installation for me. Unit condenser first floor, the fan coil second floor, or condenser at the roof, fan coil second floor also. I mean, honestly, I mean, in a perfect world, if the condensing unit was below the evaporator, that would be better. Less potential of oil getting trapped in a weird place, but you have to make sure that you pipe things correctly. When you have a condenser on the roof and an evaporator below it, it's very critical that you size the refrigerant lines correctly, and you pipe everything correctly, so that way there's oil return, because it's inevitable that oil is going to flow with the refrigerant a little bit. And if you have a really high pressure drop from your evaporator or your condenser, there's potential that oil is going to make its way to the evaporator, and then it's not going to be able to get back to the condenser, especially if it has to go up and it's not piped correctly. That leads to problems. That leads to another question that someone asked, I saw in my comments, and I actually had a couple people asking this: why in the heck do you put solenoid valves in systems? And it's to address a major problem, and that is liquid migration, essentially, right? So different times of the year, the refrigerant might migrate to the colder or coldest places, right? And when you start that system back up, that refrigerant, maybe it migrated down to the evaporator. Well, when you start it up, it's going to flood back to that compressor. And what it can do is it can actually mix with the oil in the compressor, and it'll start to wash out the oil. The oil will travel with the refrigerant and leave the compressor. And, then it becomes an issue, right? Because then the oil can get trapped in different places in the system. And so that's one of the reasons why we install liquid line solenoid valves, to prevent liquid migration, right? For the refrigerant to just naturally move to one place in the system, because that refrigerant's constantly, even when the system's not on, that refrigerant's going to move around the system. It's, you're going to get an accumulation of liquid over here, and then when you turn it on, that liquid's going to come back to the compressor, and we call that a flooded start, and it can mix with the oil and then wash the oil out, and then it's really hard to get that oil back in if the system has high pressure drop, if it's not piped correctly, all that stuff. So all right, what else we got going on in here? Let's see. Okay, there you go. Yeah. And in my opinion, I'm going to get up on a high horse right now. In my opinion, I'm going to say that fresh air is the best resource to clean, breathable air in a home. Okay. So instead of adding all these weird devices, I'm not a firm in to each their own. If you're a big believer in the UV lights and the whatever ionizers and all these different things, I'm not. Okay. So to me, your best bet is to design a system to bring fresh air in, right? Bring filtered, clean, fresh air in from outside, bring it into the house, dilute the air that is dirty, right? And that's how I'm going to, instead of putting in UV lights and scrubbers and bipolar ionizers and all this weird voodoo stuff that just doesn't make any sense to me. But to each their own. Okay. Thank you very much for the channel support, guys. I see this Fabricio. Thank you very much. Edgardo. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. And there's been a few other ones. This is very awesome. I really do appreciate any support. So thanks so much. Not a fan of snake oils, says Jason Johnson. Yeah, me too. Now, there is a time and a place, right? I've installed those things during the COVID BS stuff that we were having. I had a customer that demanded I installed a bunch of the fresh air, UV, bipolar ionizer, whatever. I literally made the customer sign a document saying that I do not believe in these things. I really don't want to install them, but I will install them for you. But I do not want to be held liable for any stuff that happens. And they signed it, and I installed like 25 of them at all their different restaurants. All right, whatever. I doubt they even did a single thing, but who knows? That's, whatever, they wanted it. I made them sign off on it, and I did it. So, all right. Oh, there you go. Yeah, Nasty. I think that's probably the best one. Nasty says that he puts crystals in his return to help keep the good vibes. I think that's probably the best thing we could do is just go to the crystal shop and buy the purple ones. I think the purple crystals are like lavender, and those are better. So if you put the purple ones, and then maybe like I think my ratio of crystals is I want 5 purple crystals and 1 blue one. That right there is going to give you perfect clean air, and it's going to make the mood in the house perfectly happy. So. And then the hippie person that's selling you those crystals, they're going to be happy too because they finally got a sale. So, ever put an RO system in for an ice machine? No, I've never done that. But I have seen. I will say that I agree that the UV lights and stuff. I have seen UV lights on ice machines, and I will agree that they do help with the ice machines. In certain situations, they will reduce the slime buildup and different things like that. But that's in a commercial setting. That's not in a residential setting in a super tight house. So anyways, all right. You have an 11-stage RO for your ice machine. That's crazy. I know that doesn't Starbucks use RO systems for their ice machines or something? I think for the fancy coffee shops and stuff. I don't deal with any of those, so I don't know. Could a liquid line solenoid help oil migration on a system where floodback has taken the compressor out previously? Well, it's not oil migration. It's refrigerant migration. Refrigerant migration, the oil is going to be in the refrigerant. So when the refrigerant leaves and travels somewhere, and then you have a flooded start, all the liquid refrigerant comes back to the compressor and it mixes with the oil in the compressor, and then it pushes the oil out of the compressor, and then it tends to get stuck. So solenoid valves, one of the things that they do is they prevent refrigerant migration from happening. It's not so much for oil. I used to say it was for oil, but I didn't realize that, and I was schooled, I was learned, right? Is that it's actually for refrigerant. It helps to prevent the refrigerant migration, which helps to prevent the flooded starts that washes the oil out of the compressor. RO is not good for consumption. Yeah, I've heard that too. So, all right, you have, but if a compressor's been taken out, it's difficult. I have a system that's really, really difficult to find out, where we've had a few compressors fail on it. I don't think I have any videos of it. Maybe I do. I don't know. But it's a system that I think we've changed compressors on it in like the last 10 years. We've changed the compressor 3 times, I think. And I'm always worried about oil being stuck in the evaporators on that system, because I'm trying to remember. I have one compressor that we changed at the beginning of this summer, and we haven't found anything wrong with the system. Like, it works great. Everything's fine. It does have electronic valves on it. I kind of question whether or not maybe it's something sticking. It's got a KE2 system on it. But anyways, that's a whole conversation. But yeah, oil problems are tricky. They really are. And it can be hard when oil leaves a compressor. It's really hard to get it to come back, depending on how the system's piped. And sometimes too, that's another thing. I've had plenty of customers. I don't have one anymore, but I just recently got rid of a customer that had a massively bad problem that was like basically unsolvable. It was a 5-story building with a giant movie theater on top of it. Okay. So the customer was just the bottom floor, and they had a giant movie theater that basically made it 5 stories, including, everything. Right. And they had split systems, 15-ton carrier split systems, and oil, because it wasn't piped correctly, in places that we can't get to, because they're going through other tenants, they're going through weird hallways and things that we just can't get to repipe it. It was never piped right. The lines were never sized right. So it was always a struggle, because you would lose a compressor, and then you'd pour the compressor, there'd be no oil. And then it's like, what do you do? How do you get that oil out? You start drilling holes in the evaporator and draining oil out, but it doesn't get it all out. Then you braze it shut. It's a nightmare. So an improperly sized system and an improperly installed system can be chaos, utter chaos. And sometimes it's unsolvable. Sometimes you just got to deal with it, because if the customer's not willing to spend the tens of thousands and thousands of dollars to repipe the entire system and redo everything, then they just got to, deal with having to change compressors all the time. Like, it's just one of those things. Like, you can only do so much, you can only do what the customer allows you to do. Why does your line set in your house rise 4 feet from the evaporator to the exterior wall before it drops down the wall? Probably because it was easier to run, to penetrate out the wall in that position. I don't know. It just depends, because it's easier to run a line set through the attic as opposed to running it through walls. It's easier to hide it. as it goes up 6 feet. Like for instance, my house, I have a closet unit. So my line set goes up about 10 feet, runs 40 feet across my attic, then drops down, 15 feet or whatever to my condenser unit. So yeah, it does create kind of a trap in reality, but it's the best you can do sometimes. All right. How do I learn? So that's a really difficult thing. So, and that brings up a whole nother question. It's hard for me to teach people. The only way that I know how to teach is just by letting people observe me, right? And then answering their questions, because my brain works differently than others. It really does. And I know that it's taken me a lot of years to figure that out. What's common sense to me is not common to other people. And it has to do with the fact that I'm just very peculiar in the way that I learn, and I hyper focus, and it's hard to teach that to someone that doesn't have a brain like mine. It's really hard. And I'm not saying I'm special. Trust me, this is a curse sometimes too, but I tend to hyper focus and tune out everything and just focus on what I need, which is good and bad. It's good at times, but then it's bad for normal life and stuff, So, when I'm interested in something, I'm laser focused on it and I just go to town, right? And I absorb everything I can. But sometimes I'm not interested in what I have to fix and I got to learn it. And it's a struggle for me. So everybody's learning, I think, is different. Everybody probably learns a different way. So I don't like reading instructions. I've made that clear to everybody that's probably ever watched my videos. If you've been watching them for long enough, I hate reading instructions. I really do. It's a detriment sometimes. I mean, it's a bad thing because, I don't get to figure things out as fast as I probably should. So, reading through the chat right now, seeing what I'm missing. Okay, I'm going to get to a couple more questions here. So this is a very common question, is what is the reasoning behind double layered condensers, like a condenser that you have to split? Like, so some residential systems, the condenser will split so you can clean the inside channel. And on commercial systems, some of the brands, the condensers will have 2, 3, 4 rows, depending on what brand they are. What's the reasoning behind that? It's just to make it smaller and, more of an appeal for customers to buy, right? Because if they made the condenser a single row, they might have to make it 5 feet taller, that equipment, right? So they can reduce the size of the equipment by stacking the condensers. And that's a whole problem in itself, but that's essentially what it is. It's just to be able to have a more aesthetically pleasing piece of equipment that is easier to sell and less drama, basically. So you think we're mixing up RO and WFI? Yeah, I don't know anything about that stuff, guys. Streams coming back. It's possible. I mean, that's the plan. I don't know if it's going to be every week. I do need to prioritize my sanity. So for everybody that's coming in here, I kind of discussed it earlier. I haven't done a live stream in 5 months. It's been 5 months. Like, I was joking about this earlier. Since I started the last live stream, I have a full head of hair. The last time my head was shaved with the #1 set of clippers. Now I have a full head of hair, but life's been busy. Work's been crazy. This summer was intense. It wasn't even the heat for us, because in Southern California, it really wasn't even a hot summer. It was just busy, just insane. And I'm short staffed like crazy. So I will be saying stuff on social media, but if anybody's watching this, I am hiring. I'm looking for an experienced service technician that lives in my area, Inland Empire of Southern California, that wants to work in the type of stuff that I work in, because I need another tech. I know I'm looking for that unicorn tech. I'm going to be very picky, but I am looking for that person. So shoot me an email, hvacrvideos@gmail.com, if you are that person. And eventually in the future, I will go with apprentices again, but I have 2 great apprentices right now, and they still need some more time, so I can't handle any more at the moment. So reading through here. Send my resumes to hvacrvideos@gmail.com. That is correct. Thanks. All right. Cool. All right. Couple more things I want to look on my list. Do I normally run 2 guys on every service call? Because I'm sure you've been seeing that a lot of my videos. No, I'm training 2 apprentices right now. So as a business, we are eating some costs. It's an investment into our company to train people. So that's why we have multiple people. Now, depending on the job, like for instance, I had another tech out doing an ice machine cleaning today. He started with both apprentices and himself. So there's 3 people on that job. right? Because they were moving all the ice out of the bin. Then we peeled off one apprentice and they went and did some other stuff. And then he kept one guy with him. So sometimes we have 2 people on a job if it requires it. Sometimes we only have 1 person on the job. So, why do condenser fins on the air conditioners on the roof, the package units especially, get so bent up if there's nobody on the roof? That's a great question. It's because we're human, right? Different buildings have different water pressure. A lot of times the water pressure is not regulated. Over time, the condenser fins become brittle and soft, and even just washing with a simple hose will bend them. When the customers don't do enough routine maintenance, then we really got to go to town and clean those condensers, and maybe they have really high water pressure, and it's difficult to not bend the fins. I mean, inevitably, the reason why condenser fins get bent for the most part with my customers is us, the technicians. That's why they get so bent up. Or previous companies, or the customer has been not wanting to change the equipment and the condenser fins are just bent. Once a condenser fin gets bent and you straighten it out, it's now going to bend even easier because it's susceptible to it. It's just aluminum. So that's inevitably the reason why the fins get so messed up. Now, there's also deterioration, salt in the air and stuff like that. But I'm just talking just bent condenser fins. That's typically just from high water pressure trying to wash the condensers off. So, do I quote 2 technicians on compressor jobs? It really just depends, but majority of the time, yes. For the most part, a compressor job at a minimum on an air conditioner package unit is going to be probably quoted at 16 hours and 8-hour job. And then, but what we'll do is we don't always bill what we quote. So we always tell the customer, we always quote high, because we'd rather come to them and be like, hey, we didn't need it to be that much. We're only going to charge you what it took or whatever. But for the most part, we're going to quote 16 hours on a compressor job. And then depending on the severity, if it's a burnout, we're going to quote another 8 hours to come back out and change the dryers in a couple weeks. So it just depends, but every job's going to change. If I'm doing a reach-in cooler compressor, we only quote 4 to 6 hours, depending on what it is. If we got to take our entire van on the roof and they have a really complicated roof, yeah, we're going to quote multiple technicians for sure. So people using pressure washers, yeah, that happens too. People using pressure washers. All right, cool. Around here, it's usually hail damage on the condenser coils. Yeah, we don't get much hail out here, Matt. So which gauges do I recommend to an apprentice? I don't suggest that you buy gauges off of my recommendation. I suggest that you talk to your senior mechanic and ask him what he likes and what he's comfortable with and use his recommendations for service gauges. I personally like the Field Piece digital gauges, but you may or may not need those. And that's something I tell even the apprentices, like when I was doing interviews, with prospective apprentices, I always told them, don't go buy tools. Wait till you come to work. Start working with me for a couple of days and you're going to see what tools you need. You're going to see what would benefit you. Don't go blow your wad on a bunch of tools as an apprentice and then get to a company and find out they supply everything. Then what do? Try to sell them? That's a struggle. So, all right. Reading through here. Do my guys get really slow? Oh, do we get really slow in January, March? Supermarket side gets slow. Yeah, we definitely have slow times. Last year was a really rough one. This year with the economy, that's the variable. The economy is jacked up. So yeah, it is going to get slow. Right now, we're doing really good because we have some promising work coming up. We have a lot of maintenances that we don't even have enough time to do right now. And then those maintenances are going to lead to a lot of work. One of our customers is committing to changing all the equipment that is over 10 years old as far as air conditioning goes on all their restaurants across the country. We're talking almost 2,000 stores. So yeah, that's going to be busy. Now, we don't get to sell them all that equipment, but we get to sell them our labor and miscellaneous materials. So, a lot of people ask me, like, how is it that I consider installing equipment for customers as opposed to telling them, no, I need to sell it to you? It's because when you do work for the chain restaurants like I do, that's just the business that they run. They buy their own air conditioners, right? They buy their own walk-in equipment. Sometimes they let me sell it. Sometimes they don't. And it is what it is, but it keeps me going, right? It keeps me busy because there's a lot of competition out there. So I'm thankful for what I can get. But yeah, I've got a lot of promising work coming up. In fact, not enough to keep up with the employees that I have. Like, we need more, we need help. So what do I think about refrigeration? Working on ice machines. I love it. That's what I do. That's my bread and butter, is working on ice machines and refrigeration work. And I like HVAC too. So I do air conditioning, refrigeration, exhaust fans, ice machines, walk-ins, and I love it to death. So Cheaper to keep my guys busy. 100%. Yep. And it's less expenses for me. Now, of course, I love selling equipment too, because we get to make profit, but we just have to price ourselves appropriately. When you're working in the restaurant stuff and they buy a lot of their own equipment, I don't let them buy parts, but they buy a lot of their own equipment. Well, my labor rates have to be appropriate to be able to stay profitable, right? So we might be a little bit more than the next guy because he's not working for the chain restaurants. You know, he's working for mom and pops where he sells everything. So to each their own. Everybody's got a way to figure it out. Do I supply the tools? I supply big tools. I ask my technicians to bring a tool bag with the hand tools that are necessary, a cordless drill, and a set of gauges. And I supply all the big stuff: vacuum pumps, recovery machines, specialty tools, you know, the big fancy stuff, the expensive stuff. We supply that. So TrueTech Tools has a new tool for straightening fins using an oscillating multi-tool. Yeah, I saw that tool at AHR. It's very interesting. So it's an oscillating tool, and it has like this little knife little thing. It looks like you're going to cut someone's hair or something, right? Like clipper attachment, and you shove it between the fins and it just kind of goes down. I can see benefits to that, but I can also see negatives to that, because the oscillating tool is going to mess those fins up even more. It's going to make, like, just because you get them straight, once a fin is bent and you straighten it out, it's now weaker than it was before. And every time you do that, it's going to get weaker and weaker. So the oscillating tool is cool, I guess, in certain situations, but I wouldn't want to use that on every single condenser. You always want to try, if you have to straighten a fin, you want to use the plastic fin combs if possible. And then the trick to those too, you know, it took me a long time to realize this, but doing the fin combs, if you buy the plastic fin combs, the condenser needs to be wet. That's the trick, or lubricated, right? So get the condenser wet, take the fin comb and work your way down. And when it gets tough, get it wet again and move your way down, and start on, don't try to just go to all the bad spots. Start on a good spot with just a little bit of the fin comb going into the bad spots, and just work a little bit at a time, just moving over a little bit at a time. And it's just time consuming. But the oscillating tool, I mean, again, I wouldn't use that on everything, but certain situations, it would be nice to straighten out ones that you can't do with the plastic fin comb. You know, I don't have the patience or the time to sit there with a pocket knife and try to straighten them out with 2 pocket knives, but you could do that too. Yeah. What's my viewpoint on variable speed ZPV Copeland compressors? Haven't really had much experience with those, so I don't have much to say about them. Variable speed compressors sound cool. There's a lot of technology involved in them, so you have to understand the programming of them and, you know, where you can mess things up. So there's a lot more sensors and different things to fail, but that's the future, and that's the way they're getting their efficiency. You know, government's mandating energy efficiency. These manufacturers have to keep up. There's only so many ways you can do that, right? So they got to come up with the fancy equipment. What's my thoughts on the ProPress tools, the press fittings in general? I have several jobs out there. I don't use them all the time, but I will use a press tool when I'm doing drain lines on ice machines, because it saves me a tremendous amount of time, and there's a lot of weird intricate piping that I do. So I'll use the press tool to knock that out. I've also used the press tool on some refrigeration jobs. I've probably got 5 or 6 jobs out there that have been running for years and years. I've got videos of them. My own house, I used press fittings in the attic on my house. Now, I don't use them all the time, and I'm not going to be the person to say, press everything, braze everything. I find what's convenient and what works, and I use it. But the press fittings, you know, you got to be super vigilant about prepping them, because that's the biggest thing with the press fittings. Everybody thinks that saves them time. It's not really a time-saving thing. It's more of a convenience. And, you know, certain situations, it might be beneficial to use press fittings, but if you properly prep them, you're spending a lot of time doing that, sanding it, finding the scratches and the gouges, and taking the gouges and the scratches out. Like, there's a lot going involved in those. So, yeah, I use it all. It just depends on the situation. Cool. I run copper drains on ice machines all the time, Steve. Yep. So my ice machines, we don't use PVC. Nope. It looks like crap to me, and it doesn't last. I work in restaurants where the restaurants are constantly cleaning under their equipment with squeegees and different things. And too many times have I been working on HVACR machines, and the customer says, something happened, my ice machine's leaking everywhere. And underneath that bin, that's only about 4 inches from the ground, that's huge 1,600-pound bin, there's a broken PVC line, and you're under there trying to fix it with your arm in weird places. Yeah, no, I stopped doing that. I do copper for my drains. So all the time, my friend. Customers understand I do copper for my drains on my ACs. That's all we do. So Do I use wire wheel on drill for sanding pipe? Occasionally. Yeah, occasionally I will. I have a couple different ones for different situations. The day that I discovered a wire wheel on the drill, it was like, oh my gosh, when you have pitted out copper, you know, before that was like pitted out with all the green crap and you go sand it and there's like all kinds of pits and that green crap's all in there. And then you try to braze on it and it never works right. That wire wheel gets in there and gets all that stuff, man. The wire wheels are awesome. So I use them sometimes, but I will say when you're using the wire wheel on your drills and different things, make sure you're wearing safety glasses. My gosh, do you not want to get one of those little strands in your eyeball? So be cautious about that stuff because those things fall off all the time when that wheel is spinning really fast. With Corel EEVs, do I or have I used the Sporlan SMA12 tool to help diagnose? I fortunately have not had an issue where I've needed the Sporlan SMA12, but I have one sitting right back here. Let me move it real quick. That I use for a trainer. I have one right here on a cutaway valve that I use for people sometimes just to explain how an electronic expansion valve works. Now, I realize this isn't an electronic expansion valve, but this is big and it's easy to cut apart. So it's the same concept on an EEV. So yeah, I have the ability to turn this on and I can open and close the valve and show someone like all the different steps that it takes to move an EEV. So I have one, don't really have to use it very much in my troubleshooting stuff though. All right. Cool. I will say I don't have them right here, but I'll be showing it. I just got the new press rings from Parker Sporlan. So I have the normal Zoom Lock Max jaws, right? That you have to go directly on the pipe. But now I have the press rings that are smaller and you can kind of go at an angle. So in tight situations, I'll be showing those. I haven't even had a chance to open the box, to be honest with you, but I've got a whole press ring kit on there. So that's kind of nice. But a lot of different manufacturers have the press rings now. So those are cool. All right, cool. Well, I'm going to wrap this up, guys. I'm going to cue up the outro music because it's dinner time at my house. It's been awesome. Thanks so much. If I didn't cover anything, you have anything you want me to cover, shoot me an email, hvacrvideos@gmail.com. Steve J says, what do the fittings cost? They're pretty expensive. I don't remember the cost, though. I'd have to look and see. There's so much stuff in my head that I'll look at the cost and I'm like, oh, yeah, that's expensive. And then I move on and I forget what it is. So, but yeah, thanks so much. I'm going to cue up the outro music. If I can figure out how to do that. Let's see. Can I cue up outro music? Yeah, there we go. Right there. Select, set as outro video. And can I play that? I don't know how to play this anymore. See, I don't even know how to do anything on this anymore. Let's see if I can figure this out. No, I don't want to. How do I do this? Gosh, I don't even know how to work this stuff anymore. Let me do this. This is what I want to do. I'm going to go video file. There we go. That's what I want to do. No, that's not what I want to do. Yeah. No, I don't know how to do outro music anymore. Well, I'm going to try it. I'll see what's up. I was going to try to bring the dogs in, but I don't know if I can get this music up here real quick. Let me see. Hold on. Come here, buddy. Want to say hi? Come here. Oh, there you go. Oh, yeah, they don't even want to say hi. See, dogs don't even remember coming in here for the live streams. Come here, buddy. Oh, hi. They don't even remember. Yeah, they don't remember anymore. All right, I'm going to cue it up. It was great seeing y'all. Thanks so much, and hope to catch you on the next one. And let's see if I can do